I just feel different when I have on a boot. It feels like official.
Yeah.
You know.
Yo soy Dante y esto es Dale Dale.
Del uno al otro no encuentro la esencia y el testigo no existe sin parcialidad.
Korey, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being part of this process.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
We met through Instagram,
Yes.
right?
Yep. I want to say I reached out about doing a show that I was doing. Might have been it.
Yeah.
But I think I followed you for a while,
Okay.
and I think you were doing a lot of photography work at the time.
Yeah.
And I realized that I wanted to do a show where 3 photographers shoot the same model or something.
Yeah.
And I reached out and you said yes. And we went and shot that day.
Yeah.
And it was a great day. But I was doing the shooting. I was in it.
Yeah.
And I was trying to produce it. And by the end of the day, I was dead. But the episode looked great. I haven't watched it in a while, but
Yeah.
I need to check it out.
It's so hard for me to watch myself on camera. I need to overcome that fear or whatever.
I'm the same way. Even on TikTok, I'll post something, and in the moment I could watch it 100 times. But let a week go by, and I go back, and it starts to play, and I'm like, oh no, scroll. It's like that was me on there. Hold on, wait a second. You know, that's something you got to get over. I think,
Yeah.
and I got to try to get over.
But something that I've learned from doing that, it's, let's say, this is episode 66. When if I go back and watch episode 15 or 20, I'm like, ew. But that means I've gotten better.
Right. There was some growth that happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's hard to say, okay, it's getting better.
It is. And I've even heard actors talk about they don't like seeing themselves. And they're in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they're in big movies and they're still cringing at themselves. So if they cringe at themselves on film, it's a battle that I'll probably never win because I mean, they're on the biggest of screens and they're famous and they're successful and they're good and they're rich and they're still cringing. So I don't know. Maybe you got to be a bit of a narcissist to really love it. I don't know.
Talking about that video, that YouTube video that we did, do you think you were ahead of the time?
Yeah, I think I was ahead. I was ahead. There were some people doing it, but I think that if I would have stayed with it, it would have been something that could have really been successful, and a lot of people would have been on it. But I think my problem was I'd like to do everything myself, and that's also the blessing and the curse because yes, I can get it done the way I want, but saying I want to do that again next weekend after the one weekend where I was just so tired after doing it, it just never happened again.
Yeah.
But I think it turned out great, and I love the concept. There's so many creatives that instead of competing with each other, it's just highlighted the fact that everyone has their own perspective and their own eye and their own taste that they bring to something. And it was we all shot the same person in the same setting, but we all came out with these totally different pictures, and they were all great in their own right.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty awesome.
It's hard to let go of when you are creative, right? Because you want it done your way. And it's it's my way or the highway.
Right.
It's and it took me a while to start letting go of things like that. Because when I started doing the podcast, I wanted it to look this way.
Right.
But I didn't know how. And I had to understand, okay, I need to start working, and little by little, it's going to get to a point where I want it. And at first, I was like you, I was on camera, I was recording, I was producing, I was coming up with themes, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, there's no way I can do it if I wanted it to be good or up to the standard that I wanted. And I had to find a producer or a videographer. Yeah. So they would take care of the part that is the hardest for me.
Right.
And I need to work on how to perform on camera.
Right.
And okay, now my wife is taking part of the cameras, and I'm here just talking to you.
Yeah, and that's the best part about it.
Yeah.
I mean, so I used to shoot weddings, and some people would say, hey, I want to hire a photographer to be a photographer and do video. And I'm like, technically I can do both. Yeah. But they're both going to suffer if I have to focus on both. I cannot do both of them and both of them be amazing. They're both going to be pretty average because do I want to take a photo in this moment or do a video in this moment? Do I want to? Yeah. It's kind of the same thing. If I'm producing the podcast, I'm in it, I'm writing, I'm making the phone call to make sure talent's here. It's like when I sit down in the chair, my brain is fried, and it's like I've been working all day, and I can't be my authentic self creatively. So,
but at the same time, I'm glad I went through that process because you know how every position works. And then when you start delegating, you can tell people how to do stuff. Obviously, you got to negotiate. You know, they're bringing their knowledge combined with yours just to make it work. Right? Because if you tell them exactly what to do, they're gonna be like frustrated. But there's people like they like being directed specifically. Right. It's like, okay, I deliver what you wanted. Bye.
And that's it. And if you have people like that, then know who you have on your team.
Yeah.
And if that's the person they are, but if they also are very talented and they have their own perspective that's also that you respect, sometimes it's like, here's what I want, but I'm gonna let you have the freedom to kind of also bring to the table what you want, because I respect your creativity or respect your eye. So I'm not gonna just kind of put you in a box because I'm used to putting people in the box. But like, here, come help me out, but feel free to do your thing too while you're here.
Something that I wanted to talk to you is about how old are you?
34.
Okay, I'm 38. When do you start working with photography, videography? Do you go to school for it?
I did not go to school for it. But, well, in high school I started. My senior year of high school, I took a photography class, and I fell in love with it from that.
What high school do you go to?
Hopewell High School in Huntersville, North Carolina.
Okay, I went to Waddell, E.E. Waddell.
Yeah,
just very close to here.
Not too far. Yeah.
The saddest part is that on my senior year, I took a photography class, and I think 2 weeks after, the teacher quit. So they canceled the class. Really? I was like, oh my God, no.
Yeah. And so before that, I took a graphic design class, and I wanted to be a graphic designer. And again, I've never done any of that stuff before. I was a sports guy, played football, wrestling, track, all that kind of stuff. And then I got into creativity. And so I did the class. I didn't even have a camera. One of my friends let me borrow his camera. He lived in Lake Norman. He had a house on the lake. They had the jet skis. Like, they had money. They were good. He was like, yeah, bro, just take it. I'm like, I can just take the camera. Like, yeah, I take it for the class. So I got it. And it was a film camera. So I was learning how to expose and all that kind of stuff. And when they had the dark room in there, you had to make it and all that. And I was just like, even the smell of the dark room, I can just smell it and be like, it takes me right back to that point where I first fell in love with it. And I graduated high school, and my mother bought me a DSLR as my graduation gift. And it was a Nikon D3100, I believe.
This is back, let me see, 2009?
2008.
Okay.
Yeah. And DSLRs were just like starting to pop. And so you couldn't tell me nothing after that. And I was shooting everything. I was making like a mock videos. I was going around, like I did one of Charlotte where I was in the back. I had a pickup truck at the time. I had my mom drive the pickup truck. I was in the back of the bed driving around John Belk Freeway, filming the city. And like I put music to it, and it was just like finding ways to be creative, and that's how I learned how to use it. That way. And then I went to college for graphic design. Long story short, I had to switch majors because to go into graphic design, they only accept 20 students a year, and everybody wanted to go. And you had to go to art school first, so I had to learn how to sculpt and draw and paint. I've never done any of that. So my first semester, I was like, yeah, I got kicked out of art school. But I went to communications, which is kind of similar, and I got PR and marketing, which I'll use till today. But on the side, I was still doing creative stuff. I was shooting in the clubs, doing promo videos for athletes and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of started my path on creativity. My junior year of college, I created a video called How Bad Do You Want It on YouTube. And it went viral. It was the first one of viral videos. I think till this day, it's still viral. But again, it's the wild, wild west of YouTube. So I stole audio, I stole this, I stole that. So, and then they ended up stealing it from me. Somebody ripped it off my page. So my actual page doesn't have the biggest numbers. Another page has it. You can't go and fight for copyright when also you stole it. So it's like, but again, in 2009, 10, it was the wild, wild west on YouTube. So, but that was my first big video that was like, wow, I created something that, I mean, it got picked up, and LeBron talked about it in Sports Illustrated before we won the finals. He said, I watch this video all the time. It motivates me. And LeBron talked about the video that I made. And I didn't get any fame from it, but it's still like, okay, I'm just starting out, and I created something that kind of made an impact. So,
what do you learn from that experience?
The main thing is visually it looks bad, right? Like it's handheld. It's the guy who my friend helped shot it. He was shaky the whole time. I'm like, bro, your hands, what are you doing? Anyway, it was shaky. The audio was great, but what I learned the most is it's not always about how good the content looks, how great it sounds. It's about the message, or people connecting to it. And even though production-wise it didn't look the best, everyone shared it, they loved it. So I think that taught me that okay, the message is more important than the packaging sometimes when it's really good. And people can connect with it. So, and from that, we tried to launch our production company back then. We were college kids, but we got some clients from there. I went to Utah and shot with the speed skater, an Olympic speed skater. and a lot of doors opened from that video. But to this day, I don't really talk about it much because it was like I was like 19. Like it's not something that I want to hang my hat on, but it's still to this day. Somebody's like, "Oh, you did the video." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did do that video." You know?
Yeah.
It's not my claim to fame, but it's my first time really having impact, and I love that.
Do you finish college?
Yeah, I went to East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina.
Okay.
Go Pirates.
My daughter is going to that school.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, look.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been back since I graduated.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle the nostalgia. I haven't been back, but I went there, graduated in 2012.
Is it a party school?
Yes.
Oh,
but I haven't. It is, and they always say like if you survive it, that means you really survived it. You survive education, and you survive learning how to handle yourself as an adult, and
good.
And I think it's well rounded. It's
Nice,
well rounded.
nice.
But yeah, it is known for partying. However, I haven't been back, so I don't know, it might not be that way anymore. But in 2012, it was still that. When I graduated and had a degree again in public relations, I got a job here in Charlotte doing social media work at a company. I had like 60 clients, and my job was to talk to them on the phone, and they'll say, "Hey, can you change my Facebook picture?" And I go in and I change the picture, and like it was just very early social media. It was a lot of C markets, like in the Midwest, like an auto shop or whatever. And I hated my life. It was bad. My first big boy job, so I felt good, but it was just not a great opportunity for me.
How long after landing that job, like, you were like, I don't like this?
I think the whole time.
From the beginning?
From the beginning.
Okay.
From the beginning, because it was a startup, and it felt like it was just a cubicle, and it wasn't that bad. I dressed up. I felt like I was doing something, but deep down, I was just like, man, I got to figure out what else is going on. And I knew I was about to get fired too. Like
Okay.
Sometimes you can feel it. Like we're not really vibing here. But luckily, the story ends great because I took an internship in college at a marketing agency, and that's the importance of doing internships. And that guy became the marketing director at a fashion company in New York. And he was like, "Hey, Fashion Week is coming up. I want you to come up and shoot it." And I was like, of course. He's like, I don't have any budget, but I mean, I can fly you up here. You can just kind of crash in my place and shoot. And I was like, all right. So we went up there and did that. And he was like, yeah, the company loved it. We have a position if you want to come and shoot here. And I was like, yes. And I didn't ask how much money or whatever. I was like, yes, get me out of here.
But you saw the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
That's how important it is. Like that's when you see an opportunity, and it's like you're not getting paid, but you're investing. You know, go for it, do it. And if it doesn't work, it's fine. Next.
Yeah, and it got me out of my bad situation I was in. So it was like a lifeline. It was like, I know you're not happy where you are. Here's something I'm gonna dangle in front of you to kind of help you with that. And that was awesome. So he became the marketing director, and I went up there, and man, it was just, I got paid $30,000, $35,000 in New York City. Granted, it was like, what, 2014, 2013? So it's still, but that's not any money. So I had enough money to go to the bar and get a couple of drinks at the end of the week, and in the month. That's all that mattered.
But were you happy?
Yes. So happy. And like I was shooting with models every day, and I was working under a lead photographer who was really good. And that's how I learned so much about photography. It was from her, because I was just her assistant. And I would just watch her on shoots and watch her direct, and she would edit, and it was like she was a high-level fashion photographer.
Pretty much you were getting paid to learn. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, for the most part. And it wasn't hard work, and it was just like I was in the studio. I was out on Long Island sometimes. It was doing every day was an adventure. We were going to the city and go to Wilhelmina, Ford models, and go to castings and have 20 models lined up, and we're picking who we want, and we're doing headshots, and it's just like, I'm doing like real stuff in New York City, the biggest of markets. Yeah. And again, even though I didn't make a lot of money, I was like, I'm in New York City. I make my rent every month, and I'm doing it. And
how long did you do that for?
I did that for about a year and a half, about a year and a half, I think. And then I moved back to Charlotte because then I found out I was having my daughter. Okay. And I was like, there's no way I can make a living in New York City, with the kids. So I was like, I'm gonna come back, but my goal was to come back, and because I'm coming back with knowledge. I'm coming back with, if I can make it in New York, I can make it here in Charlotte. And so that kind of drove me, like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to find a way to still be creative. I did not want to go back to that same job. I did not want to go back and be in a cubicle. I wanted to be creative. And luckily I was able to come back, and the company that I work at currently, More Should Continue There, they had an ad on Craigslist, and they were saying, we're looking for somebody that had a marketing background and film production. I was like, that's me. Like I have a degree and I do both. So I reached out, and they hired me, and they loved me, and I've been there for 10 years.
Wow.
10 years at the company.
I wanted to talk to you specifically about working in the corporate world versus being an entrepreneur, because I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I don't want to demonize, the corporate world sucks, but I want to hear from you, like, what's the positive that's given you? Yeah,
I think it all depends, number one, on the corporation you work for, and who is your boss, who's your manager. Because so one thing I've learned is people don't leave corporations, they don't leave jobs, they leave managers. Usually there's somebody at that lower level or somebody right above you where the confrontation, the friction is, and that person leaves. The company could be great, but your boss's boss, somewhere in the chain is where there's friction, and people have bad taste in the mouth of certain corporations. So I will say that where I'm at now, my boss is amazing, and I've had great opportunities, and they instill good things in me. They send me off to LA for a film school for like a week or two. Like they
invest exactly,
because they know that if I get better, then my product will get better for them. So they invest in me. So my situation is probably not the norm. However, I think that being an entrepreneur isn't for everybody. The same way college isn't for everybody. I think a lot of times I always say the best position to be where I want to be is like, I don't want to be number one. I want to be the number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. So say you're in a company and you have a company and you're the CEO, you're number 1. You hold all the pressure. It's on your shoulders. If I'm your right-hand man, I get all the same accolades or all the same respect as you get, but I don't have to carry the load as much. I'm responsible for helping you grow, helping us grow, but I don't have to be the number 1 guy. I can go home at night and do what sleep. I still make a 6-figure salary. I'm still your right-hand man. I go to important meetings with you. But I can go home and sleep because, again, it's not my company. I'm the COO. I'm not the CEO. Or I'm the creative director. I'm high up still, but I'm not the CEO. And a lot of times people want to go and be number 1 because they think that's what you're supposed to do. And like, I want to be number 1. But, a lot of times it's like, find what suits you best. I know that I like to go home and I like to have my quiet time. I like to relax. I don't want to be stressed all the time. So sometimes being an entrepreneur, you have to carry all those hats. And in corporate world, another thing is I get to go home and cut it off. And that's the one benefit of being in corporate and versus being an entrepreneur. But I think in today's time with the gig economy and being able to have a side business, of course I have side work that I do all the time, and that keeps me busy. So I love the balance of corporate and my side thing.
You're a hybrid.
And I think about switching, and I'm like, should I not be a hybrid anymore? Should I just go full time? It's like, I think the universe will let me know when that's time. It'll get to a point where it doesn't make sense.
It happened to me.
Did it?
The difference was that when I was in the corporate world, I wasn't doing anything creative. It was all like managing, warehousing. I'm good at it. But then after a certain period of time, I was like, this is not for me anymore. I was like, I don't want to go to work anymore. And then it was a pattern. Every 2-3 years, it's like, okay, next job. And then I realized it's not the job, it's me. That I'm at the wrong place.
This isn't the fit.
And I was working at this place, and one day they called me. It's like, hey, you're being let go. You're being laid off. And I was driving home, and I was like, I'm so happy. I don't have to come back to this place.
Right? Like, imagine being told you're let go, and then you're just like, and you just feel like inner peace.
Yeah, that's how I felt. And then I promised to myself, I got to do something different. This is a sign of God saying, you stop doing that. You're not happy there. Go for, you're 37. You just go for whatever makes you happy. But then I have to rewire my brain. And it's been a long process. It's been almost 2 years since that happened. And like you say, become an entrepreneur, you're like, okay, I'm stressed. Like, I have to work 24/7. Am I going to be able to pay rent?
Right.
But then I started, now I work with my wife, and it's like, okay, when we're home after 9, we're not talking about work anymore.
You got to have the boundaries.
I do not cross that line because it's going to make us miserable. Let's have schedule. You know, people like, yes, being an entrepreneur is amazing. You know, you got freedom. You know, you can make your own schedule, but it can kill you as well. You know, because you're like, but you have to create that system of how you want to work. Yeah, it's hard when you switch when you have that 8 to 5 responsibility. Right. But then when it's your responsibility, it's like, okay, what do I want to make it 8 to 5, right, or 9 to 6, or 12 to 8? It's up to you. And not many people can make that decision.
It is. And you have to recognize who you are, because it's not for everybody in the sense of, some people will say, I don't want to make any schedule. And it's like, well, you're setting, you have to have some type of structure. Yeah. Because it's easy to slip into, it's been 3 days, I haven't done anything. And it's like, you have to go out and kill to bring the food home. Yeah. Nobody's giving it to you.
Pretty much. Discipline. Discipline is a big factor. Yeah. I didn't have any discipline growing up. I had to learn that in my mid-30s. And it's valid because I accepted it. It's like, hey, I don't have any discipline. You know, there's many photographers in town that I've seen become better than me. Why? Because they were shooting every single week. I saw myself as an artist and not a photographer. And I would be like, oh, I'll do it when I'm inspired. But guess what? Like, it's been 2 months, 3 months since I have grabbed my camera. Yeah. So that guy who's doing it every weekend is getting better.
He's getting better. He's getting better.
And now they have studios. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And I'm in the same spot. I felt that as well. There's times where I was shooting a whole lot when I first got back to Charlotte. But in 2015, I mean, I have a reel that I put together from 2015. And it's so good. And it was so much work. And now I haven't shot it. I don't have a reel because it's like, I don't shoot for fun anymore. And there was people that I remember that are like, wow, that person's really good now. Like you said, and like, I see people like doing things. I'm like, wow, they're good. That's great. And I feel like I'm not a photographer anymore. That's just the medium that I used at the time. I think I'm just an artist, like you said. But sometimes, like you said, that artist thing is like, it's also a cop out for being like, you didn't do the right thing. You didn't put the work in. Yeah. So now I'm just an artist, and when I feel called, I'll move and do things. But I mean, to a degree, as long as you're taking your time, you're actually putting out work. That's one thing. But sometimes I get caught saying I'm just an artist, but really it's like, no, you're kind of being lazy. You don't want to go out. Yeah. You don't want to shoot the thing. You don't want to, you know, your bills are paid now. Things are better, so you're like, I'm not going to shoot anymore.
I've seen your work, and I love your work ethic. You know, you're like looking every single spot. It's like, hey, listen. So I see you more as of a creative director, for sure. And
that's actually my dream job. That's what I want. Even as growing up in high school, I realized, like, when I found out what that position was, I was like, that's where I want to be. I want to lead a team. I want to have a vision, and I want to help try to do that. I mean, the dream would be like the creative director at Nike, creative director at some big brand is like the dream. But even on a small brand, I would love that, just to kind of have a creative team and create great opportunities, great work, and also be able to, I love commercials. I love ads. So I want to sell a product. I want to, you know, some people create stuff just as like art. It's just like, that looks great. That painting is amazing. But there's no actual goal towards it. But with advertising and commercials, their goal is to make it attractive, make people want it, make sure that, like shooting fashion, I learned that, like, okay, you can have a cool shot, but can they see the garment? They need to buy it. So I need to know, because I'm sure you've been to online shops where it's like, that jacket looks cool, but I can't really, like, I don't really know how it looks. It looks good on him, but then I get it and it's like, oh, it's actually a light gray. I thought it was dark. So like being able to light something properly so that it can sell and look good, not just a cool shot. So stuff like that, creative direction is important for that.
Are you a fan of Virgil?
Yes.
So I saw something about him the other day where he said, you know, you can see a can of soup at a store, and it's just a can of soup. Right. But if you create this whole space being attractive around the can of soup is going to be amazing. Yeah. And that's what he used to do for his shows.
Yeah, exactly.
He worked on the space around it to elevate.
it. And he took basic things like calling something a shoe or something, put it in quotations. And it's like, the concept isn't crazy, right? But it's how he applied it, the environment he put it in, and it's just like, oh, now when you see quotations around something, a word, it's like, oh, I know what that is. Where
executing.
That comes
from. It's so important. Yeah. To not many people can execute and do stuff. You can have many ideas. Yeah. You know, there's many times that I'm like, oh, I had that idea 10 years ago, but guess what? They did it.
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
Yeah, and so and like there's this thing I say there's thinkers and there's doers.
Yeah.
And thinkers need doers. Doers don't really need thinkers because everyone has an idea. So if that person doesn't have the best idea, but they're doing, eventually with much consistency, they'll have something. But a thinker's going to have an idea every day, and I had this great idea, bro. This next day, I got a great idea, and he's just like, "What are you doing?" I'm at Starbucks. I'm just kind of, but I got ideas for you. And like, I know people like that where it's like, man, you got great ideas. I wish you could do something. And he's like, man, that's not me, man. I just like to make coffee. And it's like, I get it, but like you got some great ideas, but he needs a doer on his team.
Yeah,
you know?
that's so true. Now you have a media company, would you call it? A production company? Korey Mac Visuals?
Korey Mac Visuals, yeah. Media production company. I mean, I in my mind, I would love to be an ad agency. That's like the 1,000-foot view is what I would love to have an ad agency where we focused on production, but really it's writing scripts, it's creating billboards, is that whole idea, creating a advertising campaign for something you're trying to launch.
How do you get to that level?
I don't know. I think a lot of times the hardest part is getting a client.
Okay.
If you have a client, you can figure out where you need to go with it because a lot of that time it takes money, it takes advertising. And again, I think in 2024, everything doesn't have to look like what it's done in the past. So like in my mind, an ad agency feels very big, but it can literally be a small team that comes up with ideas. Yeah. And then you get the right person within the corporation to say, hey, here's an idea we want to do, and they'll say, you know what, this looks great. Come on board, help us with this. It can be as simple as that. And it can grow into, wow, we have an office space has all these employees and we're doing that. But in my mind, I want to mix the love I have for marketing and creativity and storytelling and brands. And that, to me, that's advertising.
Would you rather be a creative director for Nike or have your own company?
Wow, that's a good question.
Because many people dream of like, oh, I wish I worked for Adidas. Yeah. And then they get to it's like, oh man, this is not what I thought.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, having your own thing will kind of always be better because at the end of the day, even still at Nike, it's still a job.
Because look at Virgil. He worked for Kanye.
Yeah.
Fear of God. Jared Lorenzo.
Yeah.
He worked for Kanye.
Yeah.
And they both went their ways.
It did.
You know?
Yeah.
Virgil, he was a Louis Vuitton, but he was still white.
Yeah.
You know?
And if you can have both, and I think having a personal brand, especially these days, is important.
Yeah.
And if I can still have a personal brand outside of working with Nike, I think that only lifts both
and I
brands.
think you can because you've been doing that for almost 10 years.
Yeah. And they just need to focus more on building a personal brand. But yeah, I think that would be the ideal. Or again, everything's for a season. So I do the Nike thing for a little bit, and now I'm 45 now, and I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to just be on my own. But now I have other clients that I've been working with. I can bring them with me, or I can just have that as part of my marketing spiel. So it's like, hey, I have my own agency. I used to work with Nike. I used to do this. I launched the LeBron shoe, and and now clients are coming. Yeah. And it all happens. But I think you could have it all. You just have to make sure that you have the right season for everything.
I think the hardest part is to make a name for yourself. Yeah. Like when they mentioned Korey Mac. When they don't ask, when they already know, oh no, I know that guy, I know his work. Okay, let's get him.
Exactly.
You know, that's the hardest part.
That's the hardest part. And that takes time. It takes consistency. It takes doing good work. And it takes being able to not be afraid to be seen. Yeah. And a lot of times I've dealt with that, of just not really wanting to be seen. I don't know where that came from, but a lot of times it's like I've kind of done some self-healing, and it's just like, you just don't want to be seen. You don't want to be seen trying. You don't want to be seen failing. You don't want to be seen you don't want to let your light shine because you're scared you're going to dim other people's light. And all that stuff is just noise in your head.
How do you work with that? Because I need some work.
Yeah,
when it comes to that.
Me sitting here right now talking to you is like one of the things where it's like helping me to do that. Okay. Doing more of the things that you kind of scared to do or don't want to do. And I think a lot of times it's really TikTok when I was putting out content for a while. And I shared a little bit of it, of my poetry on Instagram. But part of that was me expressing myself and saying, hey, I'm going to put myself out there. And I enjoy myself when I do it. But then there's times where it's like, you start the voices start to come back, and you're just like, why don't you just stay in the lane that you're good at? Why are you trying to do this? Why do you want to be seen? Why do you care what people think? Why do you? And it's like, social media is a double-edged sword. It's like, of course, I create content, I have a voice, I can put it out into the world.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, or I can just not do that and be a consumer. And sometimes I feel like I consume too much on social media. And it's like, you have so much to offer, like you do. I can actually produce and not just be a consumer.
Okay.
So I want to start producing more. But I have a love-hate with social media. I really do. I really do. Sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't want to put out content right now. But then you force yourself to put out content, and eventually, like some of your videos, they pop.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of views, and it's like, okay, well, now people are starting to see me and understand what I'm doing. The people I work for, they're getting recognition. My clients are doing well. So it's a double-edged sword, but, you know.
Yeah. The way I see social media is like, I don't know, like a superhero movie. When they have this device, you know, you can destroy the world with it, or it can be the most powerful tool, you know, to make everyone rich, and you know, blah blah blah. That's the way I see it. You can make money, you can make a great living out of it, or it can consume you. Yeah. You know, it can destroy you. You know,
and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
Or better. I don't know. However you want to look at the coin, it's only going that way. You know.
Yeah.
So
there's I've been thinking about this project. I mean, there's so many people trying to tell people what to do on social media, like, oh, you should do this, you should do that.
There's 5 tips to do this. And and they're screaming at you.
And I want to do my own exercise of talking to myself, making videos for myself.
Are you putting them out, or like they're
putting them out?
Okay, put them out.
But they're for me. You know, like when you used to have photographs printed before, and you had albums, and you will go back every once in a while. And as a kid, you probably experienced that.
Yeah.
I want to have that printed on the internet for myself when I'm 45, when I'm 50.
Yeah.
You know, because I wish I had more content from when I was younger.
Yeah, and I love that, and I mean, part of that has been going through my mind, think about like legacy and like leaving something behind is like, you know, for my daughter, like I wish I knew my grandfather enough to know what he did, or like, or when I passed and she goes through my stuff and it's like, oh, this is my dad's painting, this was his photograph in Mexico, this was his video he produced. It's like, I need to put more out into the world just for legacy purposes. Of like, and most, I mean, great artists, they don't get popping until they're dead. It's like you find all their work on a hard drive somewhere, and it's like, this stuff's amazing. But if you don't create the stuff, it's nothing's going to be there. Right. But that's cool. I never thought about creating it for yourself, like kind of talking to yourself.
You were born in Charlotte?
Born in Charlotte.
Right.
A Charlottean.
You're probably like the 20th person that I've met.
yeah. You don't hear that much. But I think Charlotte's a great city.
I love it.
It's a great city. But I think you, in order to appreciate it, you have to leave at some point for a little bit. Experience other cities and find what's good in other cities, but and when you come back, it's like, oh, Charlotte's pretty clean. Like you it's like certain things. It's like you think it's whack, you think it's lame, but when you go somewhere else, you come back, you're like, okay, Charlotte.
So let me tell you about my experience. I came here in 2003 when I was 17 years old, coming from Caracas. Came here, I hated it. Yeah, it was cold. It was December. It was boring. I couldn't drive. I couldn't drink. I couldn't do anything, right? So after 2 months, I told my mom, I want to go back to Venezuela. This is not for me. Yeah. I was talking to my friends. They're like, oh, we're going to a concert. We're going to a party. I'm like, I'm here. Like, what do I do?
Like, what's going on?
And she's like, go to high school for a year and make some friends, and then we talk. That's what I did. I made some friends. I learned how to break the rules, and I fell in love with the city.
You got to find the pockets. Yes. Right.
But then the city started growing, so more entertainment was happening, more concerts, stuff that I liked, it was happening. Then I fell in love with photography, and I dreamt of living in New York City or LA. And then I had the chance to work with this band going on tour around the country. Yeah. And what you just said, it happened to me. I'm like, whoa, Charlotte is not that bad. It's not that bad. You know, Charlotte is way prettier than a
lot of these cities. Yeah. And it's growing like crazy. So like imagine in 4 years what Charlotte's gonna look like. It's like eventually it's going to be a city that's going to have everything that you need.
The key to it is to evolve with the city.
Yes.
You know, because a lot of people complain like, oh, houses are so expensive now, blah, blah. Well, if you're stuck in 20 years ago, of course. In the 80s, people could afford houses in New York City maybe than compared to what it is now.
What it is now, yeah.
But you have to evolve with it.
Yeah, and a lot of people that say bad things about certain, not even Charlotte, but just in general, people they say bad things about Charlotte, but they're also not involved. They're also not out in the city. They're not moving. They're not shaking. They're looking from scrolling, or they're at their job and they go home. They're at Walmart, and it's like that's not Charlotte. You know what I mean? That's not any city. You can go to New York or LA and hate it there because you don't know anybody. You don't know where the spots are. So you're like, all I see is in Atlanta, it's traffic. Okay, yeah, but there's also a lot of good things going on in Atlanta. But you still have to know and be part of the community.
I saw this reel last night about like a speakeasy store in Atlanta, and I'm like, I want to go.
Yeah.
And I don't like Atlanta at all.
But
I saw it, I'm like, I just want to go to that place.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of places like that in town. I don't like talking about trends, but the blind, Love is Blind, the show. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
I never watched the show until this season.
It's like the Kardashians, you know. I was like, the Kardashians. I'm like, babe, when's the new episode coming out? I want to watch it.
It sucks you in every time.
Yeah. Didn't you feel good about like the way they portray the city?
Every time they did the B-roll of the city, because we're not used to seeing our stuff on TV like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I know that place. Oh, it looks amazing. Those shots are great. I love seeing Charlotte on there.
We went out, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and I went to a place, and I'm like, oh, this place is like, they could shoot an episode here, you know, a scene here.
And I would love to just been on a production of that, just to be around Charlotte. Because I remember when they were doing the casting, they reached out on Instagram to me and some other people like be on the show. And like now, hindsight, because I'd never watched the show before. Okay. In hindsight, I was like, man, I would have been on the show, acting crazy for the fame.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was so cool to see Charlotte on there, and I think the community of Charlotte itself has gotten tighter from the show, though. Yeah. Because we all have something in common to talk about. We also seen local Charlotteans on Netflix, and I think it did a lot of good for the city.
I think that the same thing happened with the Charlotte FC team. You know, I'm not a soccer fan, but I do like the fact that there's a huge community that feels proud. Yeah. You know, they represent. Very proud. Yeah, and they represent the city, and I bet for people that like football felt the same way. Yeah. But that was the first time I felt like, oh, this is pretty cool. Have you ever been to one of the games?
I've been to the games, and I enjoyed it. And I love it for the sense of, because it feels like FC has uncovered an underground Charlotte, which is Latino, which is Spanish. It's like, you go to the game, it's like, wow, it's so many, and it's like all different shades and colors, but the energy is good, and it's like, this is Charlotte. Charlotte is banking and white people. You know what I mean? Like, in my mind, but then you go to the game, and it's like, there's culture here. There's like, and I just love, and that's what the city needs.
The first time I went to a soccer game was in Mexico City. That's when I experienced like,
and that's a different level.
How intense it is, right?
Yeah.
But then I went to the last game that I went in Charlotte. I saw white people being that way. It's like, come on, just standing there. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. You know, they're like they're enjoying the energy. Yeah. It's like, this is amazing.
Yeah, and it's good for the city. I mean, what I love about the big cities, LA, New York, Miami, is the diversity. And that's what Charlotte lacked years back when you first moved here. I'm sure it was like, where are the people? This is white people everywhere.
Yeah, you know what I mean? When I went to high school, I was the second Venezuelan in the whole high school.
In the whole, stuff like that. It was like the whole high school, really.
Yeah. But in a way, it made me open up to different cultures and learn different, not languages, because I mean it's all Spanish, right? But different slangs and all that, different accents, and you know, I love Mexico. Yeah, I love the culture because it's like right next door. But also because my first group of friends were from Mexico. Okay, so it's like, okay, this is cool. I like it. I enjoy it. You know.
I have a love for Mexico too. We vacation there a lot, and then growing up, when I went to James Martin Middle School, the bus I was on was full of Mexicans and some other Spanish people on there, and they were teaching me different languages and all the bad words, and I was trying all the candy, and I was just like getting into it because like that's what I was around on that bus, and it was really cool to kind of see that, and
Have you been to Mexico City?
I have not. That's on the list.
You have to.
That's on the list. I'm going to Honduras this year.
Okay.
In June. So that's gonna be my first time over there. That's where my daughter's mother's from.
Okay.
I'm gonna go visit there, but we're going to Roatan, which is like the nice part, obviously. But it's still cool to go there.
Is that islands?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the island right outside of Honduras.
You know, I saw that back in maybe 2002 or 3 on MTV. It was Cameron Diaz. She was surfing in one of those islands.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they say it's one of the prettiest beaches that people don't go to because it's not like a well-known spot.
Yeah. It's not too popular, I guess. Yeah.
And that's my favorite thing to do is vacation photography. Like I always bring my camera when I go places and just take pictures, and because it's scenic and it's like an adventure. And I might even bring the drone just to kind of like try.
I used to do that a lot,
Yeah.
but I stopped. I don't know. I'm more present. I want to like see it through my eyes instead of through the camera.
That's the struggle.
But I kind of miss it.
That's the struggle.
I do miss it.
I bring the camera. I try not to force myself to do it, because there's times where I am not enjoying my vacation because I haven't got the shot that I need. And the whole day 4, I'm like, man, I haven't got the shot that I love yet.
Yeah.
Like, I have this energy where it's like, bro, you're on vacation, like relax. And I'm like, I'm anxious because I'm like, I gotta get a shot. And then I get a good shot. It's like, all right, I can relax now. And it's like, no, you're on vacation. Whether you get a shot or not, enjoy the moment you're in.
Have you ever done a trip just to do photography and not vacation with that camera with you?
I haven't, but I think my trip to Mexico City will be that though.
Okay.
Because I think there's so much to look at. I would literally just be like, I'm here to get these shots. Of course, I'm on street food, and of course, I'm gonna do whatever. But like, my camera is on me.
If you're down, I'm down to do that.
Yeah.
Because I've never done a trip just like, and I've told my wife I want to go on a trip just to take photos.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to a club. I don't want to do the trendy spot. I don't care about that. I want to go just to take photos.
And there's a time and a place for all that.
Yeah.
But, and even like when I go, I want to bring more than one lens. Like when you bring in your kit, your camera, that's when it's like it's here for a trip.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to. I've got one lens, 24-70, because I need everything. But I would love to have a long lens so I can get a nice long shot and all that.
Yeah.
But that's a commitment on travel. Where it's like now I got to have an extra bag, or I'm worried about stuff getting stolen or falling off the boat or something like. But yeah, on an actual photography trip, it's like I'm bringing out the cameras, the lenses, and we're going to go shoot and create some content.
Dude, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no, this is awesome.
I don't want to say I want you to do it, but I wish you did more of the poems. That's really cool. Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it's something that I enjoy doing for myself, and I just want to get better at sharing it. I really love writing it versus reciting it.
Okay.
But it's content, I got to put it out there. But no, I want to do more, but it's one of those things that it feels real personal. Yeah. It feels very like vulnerable. It's something to get me out my shell for sure. So I want to do more of that. But I want to do a book one day, poetry book. But again, I don't want to put the pressure on, you got to write a book, you got it. Because I feel like I cannot do my best work when I feel pressured to put the best work out.
How about you switch the word pressure for responsibility? Let's say due date. I wanna do it by 2026.
Yeah.
Then you have that responsibility. I promise myself,
this is the date.
So I'm gonna work little by little instead of like, oh, I'm pressured to do this.
I gotta put one out,
because we do need responsibility.
We do. In order to get it done.
Yeah.
And so now, how many do I have to do each month in order to have 100 poems by this date? And that's a smaller goal, 2 poems in the month of April, versus like I gotta get 100 poems by the end of the year. It just sounds better. So that's something I might do. Yeah,
I have different type of clients where one of them is like, they're really like, I want to have it done by this date. Yeah. And the other one is like, oh, just whenever you want to.
When I don't have a date, it doesn't get done. Even at work, my boss knows this. It's like, I need a deadline because it's going to sit on my desk.
There you go. So yeah, you need to create that responsibility for yourself. Yeah. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's for you.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Dude, thank you so much. I love doing this.
I appreciate it. This was good.
Bye.
Del uno al otro, no.